Hi, welcome to this genealogy series program from the Spartanburg County Public Libraries. I am Charity Rouse. I'm the Director of Local History, and it is my privilege to share with you this program about the 1950 census. For anyone watching this who participated in the live edition of this is a slightly revised presentation, re-recorded on April 18th. So, if you hadn't heard already, the 1950 census was released to the public on April 1st. There are a number of things that we can find out about our ancestors, and in this case, our slightly more recent ancestors than we're often looking for in genealogy. So we're going to dive in and find out more about how to research in the 1950 census, because for the next few months, it's going to be a little different to find information in the census than it has been to find things in the 1940 and before censuses, simply because of indexing. So, some of the things we're going to cover tonight are the setup of the census enumeration, because it changes each time, each 10 years, how the information is being released, Archives.gov, which is our National Archives and Records Administration website, their searching and resources, and then the Ancestry.com searching and resources, and then some transcription projects that you might want to volunteer for and help out that will get the indexing available really more quickly. It's going to still take some time. It's a lot of information, but they do depend on some crowdsourcing to help get some of this put together. Now, on the screen, you do see a picture of a census taker writing information with the staged family. This was part of a promo campaign that they did in the 1950s. It is an era photograph associated with the 1950 census. Most of the time, the census taker would not go into the house these days. Hopefully you did participate in the 2020 census, and that will be released in 72 years. So, we are grateful to the U.S. Census Bureau. Every 10 years since 1790, the U.S. has conducted a population count or census. This has been used primarily for representation in Congress and the distribution of tax dollars. It can also be used for genealogical purposes, and quite a few years ago, and there are entire books written on this, a 72-year privacy restriction was placed on the personally identifiable information found in the census. So again, the 2020 census will be released in 2092. And this is the census.gov website dealing with the 1950 census records. You're not going to necessarily use this for primary research into the census pages and for any of the personally identifiable information, but you may want to look at the census.gov website for some of the statistical information on housing types and block level housing, how many homeowners versus renters on that particular housing block, and things like that. There are a lot of great resources on census.gov, but not so much ones that we use for genealogy. So in 1950, there were plenty of plans, implementation, the gathering of information, and initial results to provide us with a lot of information. So the information gathering that happened, enumerators, or the census collectors, there were 140,000 give or take a few, enumerators. There was a significant push to recruit school teachers as enumerators because they were seen as being more literate and with better handwriting. Not necessarily the case, but good try. And then the enumeration districts were planned to be an area which could be covered by one enumerator within 2 to 4 weeks of 8-hour days. Boundaries were defined by political boundaries, such as counties, cities, townships, wards, and geographic boundaries, such as roads, railroads, waterways, large properties like parks, cemeteries, prisons, and schools. So, if there was a big property that would be difficult to cross, or you had to go completely around, that often allowed for a natural break. If there was a river without a bridge, those types of things would affect the shaping of the enumeration district. And they could be as small as a city block or an apartment building in Chicago or New York, and as large as a significant portion of a rural county, depending on size. Some enumeration districts are going to be much smaller than others, people-wise, simply because there's a lot more distance for the enumerator to travel. The information that was collected was approximately 46 million dwellings were visited. 2.2 million dwellings were visited each day of the census period, and at the cost of approximately $1 million per day to take the 1950 census. It was largely finished between April 1st and May 30th, 1950. That includes revisits, that includes tabulation, rewriting of things, confirming that they had counted all of the households, writing in some of the individual surveys that were sent in onto the primary census sheets, etc. There were 3 record sets included. The T628, that's the National Archives record set number for this collection, T628, has 6,373 rolls of microfilm, which translates to about 6.4 million digital images. This is a lot of information. And that is the population and housing schedule. The second record set that is involved in this release are the Forms P8, the Indian reservation schedules, and these have about 33,000 digital images. I do not have an image of this yet in the program, but if you're interested in that, please contact us in the Kennedy Room, and I'll be glad to walk you through it at that time. The P8 Indian reservation schedules were done in addition to the P1 population schedules. So those on the Indian reservations who were covered by the P8, which is not all of them, but there are 33,000 images, would be also found on the P1 population and housing schedule. We're working with the government here. They have lots of schedules or forms for different purposes within this record collection. So the third group of records that we have in this census release are the population censuses for Canton Island, Johnston, Midway, and Wake Islands, all in the Pacific Ocean, and they have about 2,000 digital images across the 4 islands. These are mostly US military and dependents and contractors and such on those islands after the end of World War II. So, what is covered in record group T628? The continental US, the territories of Alaska, Hawaii, remember they didn't become states until after 1950, American Samoa, Guam, Panama Canal Zone, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. There were self-enumeration forms, I believe they were the P3, which some people were given for various reasons. They weren't home, they didn't have time to fill it out right then, but they could fill it in and mail it in. But there were also some self-enumeration forms which were tested in Ingham and Livingston counties in Michigan and Franklin County, Ohio, along with some selected additional enumeration districts in Michigan and Ohio, with a number of experimental forms. The territories also used slightly different forms from the standard P1 form, but they included the same basic information. Sometimes they had more questions asked or some specific questions asked having to do with that particular territory. And these were, if it was a different form than the P1, it was numbered, P18 or whatever. There were 2 transient nights, April 11th, where they surveyed hotels, YMCAs, places where people might be staying temporarily but longer term, or were business travelers, those types of things. And then April 13th, where they surveyed missions, flop houses, cheap hotels, some night-by-night boarding situations. If you were in a standard boarding house, that would have been on the April 11th, or you would have been counted on the primary P1 document. These transient nights, the information collected there was transferred onto the appropriate enumeration schedule for the geographic location where the hotel or whatever would have been counted. They were transferred onto sheets 71 and above. So in the enumeration districts, you may only see 24 pages in an enumeration district. And you're going, yeah, but so where's page 71? Well, it's sheet 71. So they did all of the people that they visited house by house by house, starting with sheet 1 and up to whatever. And then if they had to revisit, like you weren't home the first time, or if you filled in an individual form and mailed it in, or you were in one of these hotels or other alternate lodgings, then you would have been transferred in on the sheet 71 and following. And when they microfilmed the information originally, they did not film blank pages. So if there was a blank page, so you have pages 1 through 22 blank, and then 23 through 70 are blank, they did not film those. So it skips from 22 to 71, and then you've got 71 through 73 or 71 through 80 or however many pages needed to record those people who were not recorded in the initial census. So what is not covered by this census, and where are the originals? Well, around 400,000 military personnel and families living overseas were only counted in a generic report from the Department of Defense, which did not include personal information. This may have also affected some of our embassies' personnel as well, but that was not specifically mentioned in what the webinars I attended to find out more information. I know that people living overseas, general citizens, do have the opportunity to fill in an individual form and get it sent back in, but that's probably not a complete count. The P8 did not cover Indian reservations in Alaska or Oklahoma, but it was taken in addition to the P1, so they should be in the P1, but it covered Indian reservations in other states and territories. The originals were microfilmed by the Bureau of the Census back in 1952. And the backs of the P1 form that have architectural information about housing, those were not filmed. That was, is it brick? How many bathrooms? How many bedrooms? How do you heat the house? Do you have running water? All of those questions are in the housing part, which is on the back of that form. And the aggregate block level information can be found back at census.gov, that first website I showed you. And there are books published with the statistics. And so if you've got questions about that, please contact us in the Kennedy Room and we will be happy to help you find out that block level information. The paper records, so all of the original schedules that were microfilmed, were destroyed in 1961 through 1963 per the then record retention schedule. The record copy became the microfilm. The microfilm is not available anywhere. It is only available in the digitized version. So, believe me, we tried to purchase the microfilm for the Kennedy Room and we were unsuccessful. So, how do you find the images at this point? Well, as of 12:01 a.m. on April 1st, all of the big websites had the chance to start downloading all of this digital image and all of the digital images from the census. Now, 10 years ago, when the 1940 census was released, some of you may have been researching at that point and remember, all of the big websites had to send someone specifically to Washington, D.C., to a certain door of the archives. And at 12:01, they started handing out large hard drives with all of the 1940 information. And then they had to wait for that person to travel back to their home base, wherever they were loading it into their servers, and start getting the information loaded into their system. This time, they could download it, and they were just dependent on how fast the download speed was and what their internet was doing. Luckily, it was in the middle of the night in the US, which did help. I've heard there were a few hiccups overnight with a lot of genealogists staying up and going ahead and jumping in. At the same time, these various institutions were trying to download all of this information. But overall, the release of information has gone very smoothly. Unlike 10 years ago, 1940, genealogists managed to crash the National Archives website a whole bunch of times in the first couple of weeks. They weren't quite prepared. This time they did a very nice job of preparing. So anyway, I digress. So at Archives.gov, make sure you are on the official .gov website. Archives.com, Archives.org are different websites with different purposes. Archives.gov is where you want to be. And you will see here on the front page of Archives.gov, you've got a number of options, including 1950 Census, Explore and Collaborate. 1950 Census is now online. When you click that image, it takes you to this 1950 Census page. If you would like to watch all of the videos of everybody going, yay, we launched the census, you're welcome to. That continues on down the page. There are 20 or so videos. I'm glad they're proud of it, and I'm glad it went well. It's just kind of fun if you aren't as interested in the research. So to the right, top right of the screen, you will see Search the 1950 Census. You will also see View the National Archives 1950 Census Genealogy Series webinars if this just piques your interest and you want to know more detail about all of this, you can go to that link and it will take you to their YouTube videos with much more information about the background and how all of this is working, and interviews with the people responsible for the website and all that good stuff. But for tonight, we're just going to make sure we click the search the 1950 census, and it will take you to a welcome page for the 1950 census website. And there are two things here. We're going to look at begin search first, and then we'll look at the resources briefly. So when you click begin search, it will take you to a page. This is the screenshot from April 4th. I was on there today. It changed just a hair. There's some more introductory information, but if you scroll down, you will get to the tips for searching the census guideline. I do recommend reading them in addition to what I'm saying tonight as you begin searching, because there's some search things that are a little bit finicky on this page. So on the search page, you can say your state, your county or city. Cities are separate from the counties that they are in. Towns, you may have to figure out, because it's roughly based on size and governance if they are considered separate from their county. So take a look at the list. If you don't see the name of this town or city, look for the county that it would be in. And then name. And really it is first name or last name. I have not had good luck with doing first and last name, either in first name, last name order, or last name, comma, first name order. It tends to search the names independently no matter what I do. And then you can search by enumeration district, and then Indian reservation schedule. And then if you have a couple spare petabytes of space, you can download the entire data set. It's a lot of information. So I wouldn't recommend going to that option, but feel free. So I did a search for Virginia, Norfolk, and Rouse, looking for my dad's parents or grandparents, his family. And so that search in Norfolk, Virginia for the surname Rouse came up with 223 population schedules. And this is showing me numbers 1 through 25 of those. So it's 25 on each of these pages. And you can change to show 25 or fewer or more. Just know it takes time to look. And you will see at the top of each, there's an enumeration district, an ED, the state, the county or city, and the matched name. You also see population schedule and a transcribed names link. So the population schedule is what you see here. And this is that first one. And I'm going to zoom in. And on the enumeration page, the P1 page, you see the form here. You see the location and information about the location. On the top right, you will see the enumerator's name, their area supervisor's name, and the page number is in the top right-hand corner. So on April 4th, actually on April 1st, that Friday afternoon, I was sitting in the Kennedy room and I'm scanning through all these pages. And so on the third page of 25, so in numbers 51 through 75, it happens to be number 51 in that particular search result. I found in Enumeration District 115-9, Virginia, Norfolk, a matched name of Rouse, Carrie A. And not all the matches are great because it was matching Rouse and house and louse and mouse and lots of similar names, and not matching a whole bunch that had that name. So the name search at National Archives is a machine read name index of handwritten documents. So it's optical character recognition of handwritten documents. I would say it's probably at about 25% accurate, which is better than I was expecting. So we'll be okay with that. It's not technology that is particularly reliable. But then again, OCR of typewritten documents wasn't that reliable either. And it's taken roughly 30 years for that to improve to a point where it is 80+% accurate on most documents. So, it'll get there eventually. Some of it, we may just have to have humans reading the handwriting, and some of the handwriting's pretty bad. Just saying. So, on this, I was looking through and I'm like, oh, well, there's Carrie. And they happen to be up here at the top of the screen. If you want to download the image from the National Archives website, you can click that, and I'm not totally sure what that does. I got gibberish. But on the top right hand, under the Help Us Transcribe Names, there are 3 dots, and one of that, the top option is download. If you click download, you get the option for a bunch of different sizes. And I have to say, the whole image at 69 by 80 pixels isn't going to be readable. It gets you the sense of it. It's not great for actual research and being able to read the document. I went ahead and downloaded mine at the top whole image deal. It was just, it's safer that way. Takes up more space. I get it, but I'm willing to pay for that space. So on this, we have on line 2 and line 3, my great grandmother and my great uncle, and they are at 120 Seaview Avenue. They are the 69th household visited by the enumerator. They're not on a farm and not on more than 3 acres. Carrie Rouse, or Rouse, Carrie A. She is the head of household. She is white, female, 70, widowed, born in South Carolina. And this was new to me. She was a part-time watchman for the fire station next door. I guess that was a good way of putting the nosy neighbor to work. I don't know. I don't know that she was a nosy neighbor. I only know her through a few stories and through all the documents I have found. Line 3 is one of the lucky lines. On every page, there are 6 people who were chosen to answer sample questions. And the final one had more sample questions than the other 5. The line which has the sample questions varies. There were, I believe, 6 versions of the sheet. So it was trying to be as much of a statistical sample as it could be. So this one is Jasper's line. So he was Jasper Rouse. He was the son, white, male, 46, never been married, born in South Carolina, works as an automatic auto mechanic for a garage. The sample questions, yes, he was living in this house a year ago. His mom and dad were both born in the US. He finished secondary grade 10, and he worked 52 weeks in 1949. He maybe earned $1,000. There's a bunch of crossouts in the income part down here, and I don't know whether that was a statistician later crossing out as they were recording it, or whether the census taker didn't ask the question correctly. And then he did not serve in either World War I or World War II. He was just at the wrong ages, little too young for World War I and a little old for World War II. On the older end for World War II. So there are also places on the forms up here and down here that the enumerator could write notes on, make notes to themselves. This is also the first census where the enumerator was instructed, if no one was at home, to write "no one home," and then put a C sheet 71 or 72 line whatever when they visited that person. So not at home, C sheet, whatever, line whatever. And so you will see that. And so you get an idea for how many households there really were on that street. The machine learning, or OCR, optical character recognition, as I mentioned before, it's not great. It's better than starting with nothing, which is where we started 10 years ago with the 1940 census. Zero indexing of any sort. Now, it can be transcribed from the page for better accuracy, especially if you see major issues in the text. On this particular screenshot, you can see some of these are much better than others, and it's supposed to only pick up the name, but not at home. So there are a lot of those in there. And this is the name only index at National Archives at Archives.gov. Now, if you want to help with that transcription, you click the help transcription or help us transcribe names. You get a first interface. You choose what line you want to do the transcription. You can choose to do just a line or two or your family. You can choose to do the whole page, up to you. And they do send you a little code each session that you say, I want to transcribe, and a pop-up comes up. Here, we sent you a code. Or what email would you like us to send a code to? You get that code, you put it in, and that helps them track who's doing the transcription. And anyway, and it asks for prefix, last name, first name, middle name, suffix. It's all you get to transcribe. And just as a reminder, transcription is transcribing what is written on the page. This is not editing. This is not editorializing. This is not adding maiden names. This is submitting what was written on the page, spelling mistakes and all. And then on page 2 of 3, our little dialog box 2 of 3, they will ask, is this correct? Make sure you typed it correctly, make sure you're on the correct line, and then hit submit or edit it if needed. And then it thanks you for submitting the transcription on the dialog box 3 of the 3. And then you can add another transcription from elsewhere on the page, or you can add a transcription to the next line. If you're doing a household, being able to add the transcription to the next line is very helpful. These are transcriptions I did for my great-grandparents, Willis and Laura Lawhorn in Rockbridge County, Virginia. The first 2 screenshots are for Willis, and the third one's for Laura because I forgot to do the screenshot before I hit okay. Life happens. So I keep talking about these enumeration districts, and until we get full indexing, the enumeration district and map of where your ancestor lived is going to be important. So, Census Bureau counts an enumeration district as the number of households and or distance one enumerator could travel over the 2 to 4 weeks the census was collected, working an 8-hour day. Sometimes the census taker only worked 6-hour days, and that affected things. Sometimes the Census Bureau underestimated how large or how much population shift had happened. So sometimes you will see these broken into a part A and a part B. So just pay attention. On the ancestry list of enumeration districts, they are not necessarily in numerical order. So you'll have to play around with it a little bit. One of the lists, it had District 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 115, 125, those types of things, and then came back to 2. And so they're not quite organized by number. And cities had their own separate from the county. So the map here is from National Archives, and I got there by going to Rockbridge, Virginia, and then clicking on Show Maps, Show ED Map. And so in this case, it's a county map that they tried to get maps for the location that are recently enough that they have the information they need. Sometimes they are recent, sometimes they're not. Sometimes, it's a little better than others. Sometimes you get a lot of good information, such as route numbers or where churches were or houses and those types of things. And sometimes you don't get much more than just roads and geological topography. So this is South River District. You're looking for enumeration districts. This one is 82-24. So 82 is the Rockbridge County prefix, and then 24, 21, 22 are the smaller enumeration districts within. A city or town is going to have a separate enumeration district prefix from the county surrounding it. This is another part of it, and it shows you here is Buena Vista, the city, and it's X'd out here because it's on a separate map. It has its own map. And its own map is this lovely blueprint map. And it took me a little bit because I was having trouble orienting myself as to where the mountain was, because the town backs up to the side of a mountain. And I did find one set of great-grandparents in Buena Vista. Now, Norfolk, Virginia has a couple of different prefixes within it because of city, the border, not quite city, but not really county, but miscellaneous geographic designation, and then also the more rural county part. Now, on both Ancestry and National Archives, and this is on Archives.gov, the enumeration district has a text description in addition to the map description. So the ED maps is where I found those maps. And 115-20 is one of the enumeration districts that I needed. And I had to do some digging on the map because I was looking for a particular street, and that street, parts of it were in 5 different enumeration districts. So you might have to look at more enumeration districts than just one. Now, especially if somebody was on, say, Granby Street, please note that enumeration districts, these edge roads of the enumeration district, somebody across the street may be in a different enumeration district because they are starting at one corner of the block, going down that side of the street, turning right, going down that side of the block, turning right, going down that side of the block, turning right, and going back to where they started. And if there are inlets or cul-de-sacs or anything in the middle of that, then they will go through those in that logical order, which means people on one block might be in a different enumeration district or definitely on a different page than people on the next block. So I knew I needed to look at multiple things, and yeah, it took me a little bit. But how did I find those locations? Well, this is the Norfolk map. Please note that there are 2 pages of the Norfolk map, and I needed the second one. And this is this top right-hand corner. I knew I was looking in a particular geographic area of Norfolk, in Ocean View, and it's this little spit of land. And so, Great Grandma Rouse was in enumeration district 9 over here. Well, 20 is right here. I knew that they were not far from where my father could ride his bike from his aunt's house to his grandmother's house. And so that made sense. The orange lines outline the enumeration districts. And you'll notice on this, it just tells you the suffix. It doesn't tell you the prefix and suffix. So you'll see in other places where, oh, okay, that's 115-9 versus 115-20. And Ancestry has an even easier way to find that enumeration district. So yay. The blue resources tab back on that Welcome to the 1950s Census website gives you links to a lot of other places and information. So feel free to go explore that on your own. Now, over on Ancestry, so National Archives released their census information on April 1st with the download available, with name theoretically searchable, with that machine read OCR of the handwritten documents, with transcription possible there. Ancestry, Family Search, MyHeritage, Find My Past, and probably some other major players have all downloaded the information. Ancestry and Family Search both had their 1950 census collection, the images, up by mid-afternoon on Saturday, April 2nd, which is insanely fast compared to 10 years ago. So again, it's one of those situations where I know there are a lot of people complaining about how slow this is, how awkward it is. We're spoiled with having name searchable, name indexed things in genealogy. So take a step back, do it old school. It will be fun. It will be fine. And if you don't want to do it right now, wait 4 to 6 months and it will all be indexed. May not even take that long. They're working through at a fairly good pace, but you're also welcome to volunteer, and we'll talk about that at the end. On the Ancestry 1950 census information page. And you get there from the main page of Ancestry, go to the US Federal Census collection and choose 1950 to just search within 1950. But this works like all of Ancestry's many other databases, where you can browse the collection, you can choose the state, you can choose the county, the populated place, the enumeration district. It gives you source information about where they got it. It gives you information about the census and what information is included and what the indexing progress is. So that was the April 4th image. This is today's image. As of today, April 18th, index searchable and giving people hints, little green shaky leaves on their trees, are Alaska, Delaware, New Hampshire, Vermont, Wyoming, American Samoa, Guam, Panama Canal Zone, and the US Virgin Islands. Searchable records, the next number of states include Hawaii, Rhode Island, South Dakota, overseas islands, and the Indian reservation schedules. So progress has been made in 2 weeks. So Family Search has partnered with Ancestry. Ancestry did their handwritten machine read of the handwritten documents for all the fields because, they wanted everything. So they are working their way through correcting the machine read, and that's what's available. Family Search also got Ancestry's machine read information, and they are working with volunteers to process through all of the information. So Ancestry.com has a really cool enumeration district finder. And this, you can type in the actual address. So I typed in 149 East Leicester Avenue, Norfolk, Virginia, USA. And I found that in a city directory listing for the family. This is my great aunt and uncle. And it tells me, when I hit search, it tells me it's enumeration district 115-20, and it shows you where it is on the map. There's an overlay, it pops up, and it says this little blue thing is what you need to look at. And when you click on that, it takes you into that enumeration district. Every enumeration district has the first image as an overview sheet as to who did the work, who enumerated the district, if there were more than one person enumerating it for more heavily populated places, that kind of thing, who checked the information, who transcribed additional information from those individual individual forms, the P3s, all of that. So that's this form on the left, and this form on the right shows Louis A. Kirst, Etta, Elizabeth Rouse, John, and Maddie A. Kirst. So Etta A. Kirst was my grandmother's older sister. Her husband, his mother, Maddie, was also living in the household, as well as my dad. So he was a salesman for a paper company. So you get some interesting information, and that's how you find it. Now, when I got to this, I did have to page through to image 16, checking for surnames, knowing I'm looking for Leicester Avenue, I'm looking for Akehurst and Rouse. So on FamilySearch.org, they have a 1950 US Census landing page, and you can learn more about the project. You can see the project progress. This is their latest updates as of April 16th, pulled on the 18th. And they have finished their first week of family review. Family Search does a double-blind indexing process. So two people index the same page, and then if they agree, it goes through. If they don't agree, it goes to a third person who decides, I agree with person one, I agree with person two, or I can't read that handwriting either, so both are going to go through. So it helps with accuracy for searching. And they have multiple steps in this. So they actually don't have anything searchable up yet, but it is coming. Their project progress map is kind of blank, but again, we are way ahead of where we were 10 years ago with the 1940. You can learn all sorts of things about lots of pieces of the 1950 census, information about that. So there is a handout for this program, and it will be linked below the video in the About the video on the library's YouTube page. If you have questions, please feel free to call us in the Kennedy Room or email the Kennedy Room email account there on the page. Let us know how we can help answer your questions and help you learn the skills to answer your own questions. Our May program will be about federal records that are about Spartanburg County. And so things that you might be able to find that were produced by the federal government about the local county that you may be researching in. In our case, it's Spartanburg County. So, and then in June, we'll be talking about DNA basics and changes that have been happening at the various testing companies. Just an overview, and I hope you will find that helpful as well. But thank you for watching, and thanks to those who attended our first Monday class. Do look at spartanburglibraries.org in the calendar section. You can search for just online program, the virtual programs, and my genealogy programs always have an option for the online part, at least for the first Monday genealogy series. I will be starting up some in-person programming in the next weeks and months, but we will be continuing online genealogy programming. So thank you for joining us, and thanks for your support. Have a great night.